I found a brand new Range Rover and thousands of dollars in designer goods hidden in my sister's garage, the same day she texted me begging for grocery money. That discovery didn't just break my heart, it shattered everything I believed about family, faith, and the woman I had sacrificed 3 years of my life to save. My name is Khadija, and I spent those 3 years working double shifts as a nurse in Dearborn, Michigan, sending my younger sister Amira hundreds of dollars every single month, while my own children wore hand me downs, and my husband Ahmed quietly watched our savings disappear. I did it because that's what faith teaches us to care for family, to be patient, to give without counting the cost. I wore my hijab as a reminder of those values, adjusting it every morning before my shift as a silent promise to be the sister, the daughter, the Muslim woman my mother raised me to be. Amira called every week, sometimes twice, always crying about the same things: eviction notices, hungry children, broken appliances, medical bills. I believed every word because she was my baby sister, and I had watched her struggle her whole life. Or at least, that's what I thought I was watching. The truth was hidden behind a garage door I was specifically told never to open. And when I finally did, I realized that the person I had been saving didn't need saving at all. She needed exposing. This is a long story, and it's going to hurt to tell, but I need to share it, and I could use a friend to walk through it with me. If you want to hear how this ends, and trust me, you do, follow along here so you catch every chapter. Because what I found in that garage was just the beginning. Looking back now, I can pinpoint the exact moment the first crack appeared, though I was too blind to see it at the time. It was about 6 months before I opened that garage door, on a Wednesday evening after a particularly brutal 12-hour shift at the hospital. I had just sent Amira $300 for what she said was an emergency car repair. She told me her transmission had failed, and that without a car, she couldn't get to her cleaning jobs or take her kids to school. The desperation in her voice when she called had been so raw that I didn't even hesitate. I transferred the money from my account immediately, even though it meant we would be eating rice and beans for the next 2 weeks. 2 days later, I was scrolling through Facebook during my lunch break when I saw it. A tagged photo of Amira at some upscale restaurant in downtown Detroit. She was wearing an outfit I didn't recognize, something sleek and expensive looking, and she was holding a cocktail glass, laughing with a group of women I had never seen before. The geotag said the place was called Granite City, one of those trendy spots where a single entree costs more than what I spend on groceries in a week. My first instinct wasn't suspicion, it was concern. I immediately called her, worried that maybe someone had hacked her account or stolen her photos. The phone rang 4 times before she picked up, and when she did, she sounded breathless. She told me she had been in the middle of cleaning someone's house. She said one of her clients had felt sorry for her and taken her out to lunch last week, that the photo was old and someone had just posted it. The explanation came so quickly, so smoothly, that I felt guilty for even questioning her. Of course, a client would want to treat her kindly. Amira had always been charming, easy to feel sorry for. But something about the way she rushed through that explanation stuck with me. It was the first time I noticed how prepared she sounded, like she had been expecting the question. I pushed the thought away and went back to work. I had patients who needed me, and I didn't have time to obsess over a Facebook photo. Still, that night when I was lying in bed next to Ahmed, I found myself thinking about it again. I mentioned it to him, casual-like, just to see what he thought. Ahmed had always been quieter about Amira than I was. Where I saw struggle, he saw patterns. Where I saw bad luck, he saw choices. He listened to me describe the photo and the explanation, and then he was silent for a long moment before he spoke. He said that maybe I should just keep my eyes open, that sometimes people we love aren't always honest about their circumstances. He wasn't accusing Amira of lying, not directly, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. It was the same doubt I was trying so hard to ignore. That conversation planted something small but persistent in the back of my mind, a tiny seed of question that I tried to drown out with faith and duty. The next week, Amira called again. This time she needed money for her daughter's asthma medication. She said the prescription had gone up in price and that her insurance wasn't covering it anymore. She was crying so hard she could barely get the words out, telling me she was terrified her daughter would have an attack and she wouldn't be able to help her. What kind of sister would I be if I didn't send the money immediately? I sent it. $200 transferred within minutes. But this time, I did something I had never done before. I asked her to send me a photo of the prescription receipt just so I could see what the medication cost and maybe help her find a cheaper pharmacy or a coupon program. It was a reasonable request, the kind of thing a concerned sister would ask. She never sent the receipt. Instead, she sent me a long text about how overwhelmed she was, how she could barely think straight, how she would send it later. But right now, she just needed to get to the pharmacy before it closed. Then she stopped responding to my messages for 2 days. When she finally called back, she acted like nothing had happened. She thanked me for the medication money and launched into a new crisis. Something about a notice from her landlord. I never got that receipt. That was the moment. Not the garage, not the Range Rover. That missing receipt was when the doubt stopped being a whisper and started becoming a voice I couldn't ignore. I started paying attention differently after that. Not obsessively, not like I was looking for proof of anything terrible, but just noticing. And once I started noticing, I couldn't stop. Little things that had always seemed like coincidences suddenly looked like patterns. The way her emergencies always came right after I got paid. The way her stories always shifted slightly when I asked follow-up questions. The way she never, ever let me visit her house without advance notice. I told myself I was being paranoid, that grief and stress from work were making me suspicious of someone who genuinely needed help. I prayed about it, asking for patience and compassion, asking to be freed from these ugly thoughts about my own sister. But God has a way of answering prayers in unexpected ways. Sometimes He doesn't remove our doubts. Sometimes He confirms them. And He was about to confirm mine in a way I could never have imagined. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning about 3 months before I opened that garage door. I had stopped at a gas station on the west side of Dearborn, the kind of place I didn't usually go but had ended up at after getting lost trying to find a patient's home for a house call. I was pumping gas when I saw her. Amira, my sister who supposedly couldn't afford groceries. She was walking out of the Whole Foods across the street, carrying multiple shopping bags with that distinctive green logo. Wearing designer sunglasses I had seen in a magazine that cost more than my monthly car payment. My hands went numb on the gas pump. I watched her load the bags into the trunk of a car I didn't recognize. A newer model sedan. Silver. Immaculate. Not the broken-down Honda she had told me about. Not the car that supposedly needed a new transmission. She didn't see me. She got in the driver's seat, checked her phone, and drove away. The entire interaction lasted maybe 90 seconds, but it felt like the ground had opened beneath my feet. I finished pumping gas in a daze. My mind was racing, trying to find an innocent explanation. Maybe she was shopping for her cleaning client. Maybe someone had loaned her their car. Maybe those weren't actually expensive sunglasses. Maybe they were knockoffs from the dollar store that just looked fancy. But I knew, somewhere deep in my gut, beneath all the excuses and justifications, I knew that something was very, very wrong. I drove straight home and did something I had never done before. I opened my laptop and started looking for Amira's name online. I wasn't even sure what I was searching for, just typing variations of her name and our city into Google, scrolling through random results. That's when I found it. A business listing on something called Poshmark, a resale platform for designer goods. The account name was A Luxe Collection. The profile photo was blurred, but I recognized the bracelet on the wrist in the picture. It was the gold bangle our mother had given Amira before she died, the one Amira said had been stolen in a burglary. I clicked through the listings with shaking hands. Handbags, shoes, jewelry, hundreds of items, all high-end brands, all listed at prices that made my nurse's salary look like pocket change. The account had thousands of sales, 5-star reviews, and a bio that read, "Curated luxury for the woman who deserves the best." The timestamps on the listings went back 2 years. 2 years of sales, 2 years of income, 2 years of her calling me crying about eviction while she was running what looked like a thriving business. I felt sick. Physically, violently sick. I barely made it to the bathroom before I threw up. Ahmed found me there 20 minutes later, sitting on the floor with my phone in my hands, staring at Amira's listings. I showed him everything. The Whole Foods sighting, the mysterious car, the Poshmark account. For the first time since this had all started, Ahmed got angry. Not loud angry, but that cold, controlled fury that comes from watching someone you love get hurt over and over by the same person. He said what I was too afraid to say out loud. He told me that Amira had been scamming me, that she wasn't unlucky or struggling or cursed with bad timing. She was a liar who had found an easy target in her generous older sister and had been bleeding me dry while building a secret business empire. I wanted to defend her. I wanted to find some explanation that would make this okay, that would mean I hadn't been a fool for 3 years. But I couldn't. The evidence was right there on the screen, undeniable and devastating. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning through every phone call, every crisis, every tearful plea for help. How many of them had been real? Had any of them been real? Or had I been funding her luxury resale business while my own kids went without new shoes? The anger came in waves. Not the explosive kind, but the deep, cold rage that settles into your bones and changes something fundamental about who you are. I had sacrificed so much. Ahmed and I had fought about money because of her. We had postponed our son's braces. We had canceled our family vacation. We had eaten meals I was ashamed to serve because I had just sent another few $100s to Amira. And she had been shopping at Whole Foods. By Monday morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because if I confronted her with what I knew so far, she would have explanations ready. She would cry and apologize and spin some story about being embarrassed or about starting the business to pay me back or about how the money was actually going to help other people. No. If I was going to expose her, I needed to know everything. I needed proof that couldn't be explained away or rationalized or covered with tears. I needed to see that garage. The hardest part about knowing someone is lying to you is pretending you still believe them. For the next several weeks, I became an actress in my own life, playing the role of the devoted, clueless older sister while methodically gathering evidence of my sister's betrayal. Amira called me on a Wednesday evening, right on schedule. She had been evicted, she said. Her landlord had finally made good on his threats, and she was staying in a motel with her kids until she could find something affordable. Her voice cracked with emotion as she described her children sleeping on a single motel bed, how humiliated she felt asking random shelters for help. I listened to every word with my jaw clenched, a notepad in front of me where I was writing down details to cross-reference later. I made sympathetic noises at the right moments. I told her I was so sorry, that I couldn't imagine what she was going through. And then I sent her $500 with a message saying I wished I could send more. What I actually wished was that I could reach through the phone and shake her until the truth fell out. But instead, I thanked her for calling and told her to keep me updated on her housing search. The moment we hung up, I opened my laptop and started searching. If she was staying in a motel, there would be a credit card charge. If she was actually looking for housing, there would be applications, visits, something traceable. There was nothing. No motel charges on any shared accounts. No new addresses in her search history when I discreetly checked her tablet during a visit where she conveniently left it unlocked. Instead, there were browser histories full of luxury brand websites and wholesale supplier pages. She wasn't homeless, she was shopping for inventory. The more I pretended to believe her, the sloppier she got. It was like she had been lying for so long that she didn't even bother to keep her story straight anymore. She told me her phone had been disconnected, then called me from that same number 2 days later. She said her car had been repossessed, then posted a photo on Instagram with a geotag that was 40 miles away, a distance she couldn't have traveled without a vehicle. Every inconsistency I cataloged felt like a knife twisting deeper. This wasn't just financial fraud. This was psychological torture, the systematic destruction of trust between sisters who had once shared everything. Ahmed noticed the change in me. I was quieter, more withdrawn. He asked me once if I was okay, if this situation with Amira was eating at me too much. I told him I was fine, that I was handling it. What I didn't tell him was that I was planning something, that every conversation with Amira was now a strategic move in a game she didn't even know we were playing. I started asking her careful questions during our calls. Where exactly was her rental house located? What did the landlord look like? How many rooms did the house have? I filed away every answer. Every detail she gave me about this property, she claimed was falling apart while she begged me for heating money. She told me the address once, casually, during a conversation where she was complaining about the neighbors. I wrote it down immediately, my heart pounding. That address was my key to everything. The next time Amira called asking for money, this time claiming she needed it for her daughter's school supplies, I had a plan ready. I told her I could bring the supplies myself, that I had gotten a bonus at work and wanted to spoil her kids a little. I suggested coming by on a Tuesday afternoon when I knew she usually posted on her Poshmark account, meaning she would likely be out doing pickups or deliveries. She panicked. I could hear it in her voice, the way she scrambled for excuses. She said the house was a mess, that she was embarrassed for me to see it, that her kids had lice, and she didn't want me to risk exposure. Each excuse was more desperate than the last. I played it perfectly casual. I told her not to worry about the mess, that I was a nurse and lice didn't scare me, that family didn't judge. I pushed just hard enough to make her nervous, but not enough to make her suspicious. Finally, she told me to just leave the supplies on the porch if I insisted on coming by. She said she would be out, but that the porch was covered and the bags would be safe. That was exactly what I needed to hear. I called her the day before my planned visit and told her something had come up at work, that I wouldn't be able to drop off the supplies after all, but would send money instead. She sounded relieved. She probably thought she had successfully deflected me again, that her clumsy older sister had bought another story. But I never canceled my plans. I just stopped telling her about them. That Tuesday afternoon, I drove to the address she had given me with a trunk full of biryani and groceries. My cover story if anyone asked what I was doing there. But I wasn't there to deliver food. I was there to deliver justice. The house sat on a quiet street on the east side of town, exactly where she said it would be. The lawn was well maintained. The exterior looked freshly painted. This wasn't a falling apart rental. This was a nice middle-class home. My hands trembled as I parked across the street. I sat there for 10 minutes, watching the house, waiting to see if anyone was home. The driveway was empty. The windows were dark. Everything was still. I thought about turning around. I thought about all the ways this could go wrong, all the reasons I should just confront her over the phone or in a public place like a reasonable person would. But then I remembered 3 years of sacrifice, 3 years of lies, 3 years of being treated like an ATM by someone who was supposed to love me. I got out of the car and walked toward that house with the key she had given me months ago, for emergencies, gripped tight in my hand. The front door had a chain lock on the inside. I could see it through the window. She really didn't want anyone coming in unannounced, but I remembered her mentioning the side yard, complaining once about having to take the trash bins around back. That's when I heard it. A low mechanical hum coming from the detached garage at the end of the driveway. Amira had always told me the garage was dangerous, full of rats and structural damage, that I should never go near it. Standing there on her property, listening to that distinctly non-rat-like humming, I realized that warning had never been about my safety. It had been about hers. The side door to the garage was unlocked. That detail still haunts me. How easy it was. How little she had bothered to secure the thing she had worked so hard to hide. Maybe she thought the warnings alone would keep me away. Maybe she had just gotten arrogant. I pushed the door open and stepped into a climate-controlled showroom that looked like it belonged in a high-end boutique, not a supposedly run-down garage in Dearborn. The air didn't smell like rats or mold. It smelled like leather and expensive perfume. LED track lighting illuminated every corner. The concrete floor had been covered with polished epoxy that reflected the lights like a mirror. In the center, gleaming under a spotlight, sat a brand new Range Rover with paper dealer tags still in the window. But the car wasn't even the most shocking part. The walls were lined with commercial-grade shelving units, the kind you see in actual stores. Every shelf was packed with designer inventory, organized by brand and item type. Handbags arranged by color on one wall. Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada, Chanel. Shoes lined up like soldiers on another. Christian Louboutin, Jimmy Choo, Valentino. Jewelry displayed in glass cases with built-in lighting. Scarves, sunglasses, wallets, even designer clothes hanging on a professional rolling rack. I walked forward in a daze, my nursing shoes squeaking on the polished floor. In the corner sat a full photography setup, ring lights, a white backdrop, a tripod with an expensive camera. Next to it was a desk with 2 laptops, both open and running. My hands were shaking as I approached the desk. One laptop showed her Poshmark account, the one I had found, but it was just one of several platforms. She had accounts on Mercari, Vestiaire Collective, The Real Real, even eBay. The second laptop had a spreadsheet open tracking inventory, sales, profits, and expenses. I scrolled through the numbers with tears blurring my vision. She had made over $30,000 in the last 3 months alone. 3 months. I had sent her nearly $4,000 in that same time period, believing she was on the verge of homelessness. But it was what I found next that made me physically stagger backward. There was a storage box in the corner labeled in Amira's handwriting, "Mom's estate." My mother had passed away 4 years ago, leaving us a modest inheritance and some family heirlooms, gold bangles, antique silver, traditional jewelry that had been in our family for generations. Amira had called me 2 years ago, absolutely hysterical. She said her house had been broken into, and that everything Mom had left us was gone. She said the burglars had taken it all, that she had filed a police report, but the cops said it was unlikely anything would be recovered. We had cried together over that loss. I had held her while she sobbed about letting Mom down, about failing to protect her legacy. I opened the box with hands that didn't feel like my own. Everything was there. Every single piece. The gold bangles, 6 of them, still wrapped in the same tissue paper Mom had used. The silver coins, the emerald ring that had belonged to our grandmother, the pearl necklace Mom had worn to her own wedding. All of it polished, photographed, and tagged with price stickers for her online boutique. Some of the pieces had sold stickers on them. She had already gotten rid of parts of our mother's legacy, selling them to strangers on the internet while telling me they were stolen. I couldn't breathe. The garage felt like it was closing in on me, the walls pressing inward with the weight of her betrayal. This wasn't just fraud. This wasn't just lying about money. This was desecration of our mother's memory, weaponizing my grief and hers to cover up theft. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos. The Range Rover from multiple angles, the inventory shelves, the laptops with her sales records visible, the box of Mom's jewelry. I took over 100 photos, making sure every detail was documented, every price tag readable, every transaction timestamp clear. That's when I found the filing cabinet tucked behind the photography equipment. Inside were folders, meticulously organized folders with labels like suppliers, expenses, tax records, and one that made my blood freeze, family loans. I opened the family loans folder with shaking hands. Inside were printed bank statements showing every transfer I had sent her for the past 3 years. She had kept records. She had tracked every single dollar I had given her, not out of guilt or gratitude, but like a business expense. Next to each transfer amount, she had written notes in the margins. Told her about eviction notice. Worked, used kids' school supplies story. She sent extra, medical emergency always gets fastest response. She had systematized exploiting me. She had turned my love and sense of duty into a formula, testing which lies generated the most money with the least effort. There was a separate sheet titled Emergency Scripts, with bullet-pointed scenarios and suggested emotional cues. Under When she asks for receipts or proof, there was a whole strategy laid out. Delay, then pivot to new crisis. She never follows up if you cry hard enough. I had to sit down on the concrete floor because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. This wasn't impulse or desperation or a good person making bad choices. This was calculated, premeditated, systematic fraud against her own family. The worst part was a note at the bottom of one of her planning sheets, written in her handwriting. Kay makes $62K a year as a nurse. After taxes and bills, she has approximately $800, $1,000 discretionary income monthly. Can safely extract $400, $600 without raising suspicion if requests are spaced properly. She had calculated my exact financial capacity to be exploited. She had figured out the maximum amount she could take from me without breaking me completely, then had executed that plan for 3 years. I don't know how long I sat there on that garage floor, surrounded by evidence of the most calculated betrayal I had ever experienced. At some point, my phone buzzed with a text notification. It was from Amira. "Hey sis, really struggling today. Could you send $150 for groceries? The kids haven't eaten anything but cereal all week. I'm so sorry to keep asking." The message came through while I was sitting in her climate-controlled garage, surrounded by tens of thousands of dollars in luxury goods and detailed records of how she had been manipulating me. I looked at that text for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond immediately, to tell her I knew everything, to unleash 3 years of rage in a single message. But I didn't, because I realized something sitting there on her polished garage floor. Amira had underestimated me. She thought I was weak, gullible, too bound by family duty to ever question her. She had mistaken my kindness for stupidity and my faith for blindness. She was about to learn the difference. I stood up, pocketed my phone, and took one last long look around the garage. Everything I needed was documented. Every lie was exposed. Every manipulation was recorded. As I walked back to my car, I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt something much colder, much more focused. I felt ready. I didn't go home immediately after leaving Amira's garage. Instead, I drove to a Starbucks 3 miles away and sat in my car in the parking lot, going through every photo I had taken, making sure each one was clear and time-stamped. Then, I opened a new document on my phone and started writing everything down while it was fresh. Every detail of the garage, every piece of evidence I had seen, every record in those filing cabinets. I wrote for 2 hours straight, barely looking up, creating a timeline of her deception alongside my documentation. By the time I finished, it was nearly dark. Ahmed had texted twice asking where I was. I told him I had stopped for groceries and would be home soon, which wasn't entirely a lie. I did need to stop for groceries, since I had used our grocery money to send Amira another payment just last week. When I finally got home, Ahmed took one look at my face and knew something had changed. I handed him my phone without saying a word and watched as he scrolled through the photos. His expression went from confusion to shock to cold fury in less than a minute. He looked up at me when he reached the photos of her emergency scripts folder and said just 3 words. "What do you need?" That's when I knew I wasn't alone in this. That's when I knew that whatever I decided to do next, Ahmed would stand with me. We stayed up until 2 in the morning that night, planning. Not planning revenge, planning justice. There's a difference. Revenge is emotional, reactive, messy. Justice is calculated, documented, and final. The first thing we did was secure our own finances. I changed all of my banking passwords and set up alerts so I would be notified of any attempted transfers. I removed Amira from any accounts where she had been listed as an emergency contact. I made sure that if she tried to access anything of mine, I would know immediately. Then we started building the case. Ahmed, who worked in IT and understood documentation better than I did, helped me organize everything into folders. We created a master timeline showing every request for money she had made, cross-referenced with her social media posts, her online sales records, and the dates of her supposed emergencies. The pattern was damning. Every time she made a major sale on one of her platforms, she would call me within 48 hours with a new crisis. She was using my money as a cushion, as backup funding when her business had slow periods. She was treating me like a small business loan she never intended to repay. Ahmed found something I had missed in the photos of her tax records. She had been claiming her resale business as a legitimate enterprise, filing taxes on it, the whole 9 yards, which meant she was officially running a profitable company while simultaneously claiming poverty to her family. That documentation was going to be crucial. Over the next 2 weeks, I did something I had never thought I was capable of. I kept up the act. I continued talking to Amira like nothing had changed. When she called asking for money, I made excuses. Work had been slow. We had unexpected car repairs. Could she wait until next month? I didn't cut her off completely, because that would have tipped her off that something was wrong. Instead, I slowly, carefully started asking questions. I told her I was worried about her long-term stability, that maybe she needed to think about getting professional financial help. I suggested she talk to a lawyer about tenant rights. I offered to help her look for better-paying jobs. Every suggestion was met with resistance and new excuses. She didn't have time for financial counseling. She couldn't afford a lawyer. She had applied for better jobs but never got callbacks. Always a wall, always a reason why nothing could change. But what she didn't realize was that every conversation was giving me more information. She mentioned her landlord's name once. I looked him up and found out the property she claimed to be renting didn't exist under his name. She talked about her car problems. I checked and found that vehicle registration records showed she owned that silver sedan I had seen her driving. Each lie added another piece to the puzzle I was building. During this time, I also made a decision about the family heirlooms. Those weren't just valuable items. They were Mom's legacy, meant to be passed down to our children. Amira had no right to sell them, and I wasn't going to let that stand. I consulted with a lawyer, quietly, paying for the consultation out of my own pocket. I explained the situation, the stolen heirlooms, the fraudulent burglary claim, the evidence I had. The lawyer told me I had grounds for a civil suit at minimum, possibly criminal charges depending on how the police wanted to handle it. But she also told me something I hadn't considered: family law cases, especially between siblings, rarely ended cleanly. Courts preferred mediation, reconciliation, settlements. If I wanted to pursue this, I needed to be prepared for a long, ugly fight. I told her I was prepared, because this stopped being about the money the moment I saw Mom's jewelry tagged for sale in that garage. The lawyer helped me file a police report about the heirlooms. I brought copies of all my photos, the original documentation from when Mom had left us the items, and a written statement explaining the situation. The officer who took the report looked skeptical at first. Sibling disputes over inheritance were common, but when I showed him the emergency scripts folder photos, his expression changed. He told me they would investigate, that someone would be in touch. He couldn't promise anything, but he seemed to take it seriously. That was enough for me. The final piece of my preparation was the hardest: telling the truth to our extended family. Not all of it, not yet, but enough to start planting seeds of doubt about Amira's stories. I started with our aunt, Mom's sister, who had also been sending Amira money periodically. I didn't accuse Amira outright. I just mentioned casually that I had seen her driving a nice car and wondered if her financial situation had improved. I said I had tried to visit her rental house and the address she gave me didn't seem to match what she had described. Our aunt was quiet for a moment, then admitted that she had also noticed inconsistencies in Amira's stories. She said she had been feeling guilty about doubting her niece, but couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't adding up. I told her to trust her instincts. I told her I was looking into things and that I would let her know what I found. That conversation was replicated with two of our cousins, with our uncle, with family friends who had also been helping Amira financially over the years. Each time I was careful not to make direct accusations, just to gently suggest that maybe we should all be asking more questions. By the time I was finished, I had created a network of people who were watching, questioning, and most importantly, no longer automatically believing everything Amira said. 2.5 weeks after I opened that garage door, I got a text from Amira. It was different from her usual requests. She said she wanted to have a family dinner, that she missed me, that she felt like we had been distant lately, and she wanted to reconnect. I stared at that text for a long time. Part of me wondered if she suspected something, but a larger part of me realized this was exactly the opportunity I had been waiting for. I texted back, "That sounds wonderful. Let's do it this Sunday at my house. I'll cook." She agreed immediately. She said she was looking forward to it, that she would bring dessert. I set my phone down and looked at Ahmed, who had been watching me from across the room. "Sunday?" I said. "We end this on Sunday." He nodded. No questions, no doubts, just solidarity. I had spent 3 years being my sister's victim. I had spent the last 3 weeks becoming something else entirely. I was ready to stop being silent. Sunday arrived with the kind of perfect autumn weather that makes you believe in new beginnings. The sky was clear, the temperature mild, and my house was spotless. I had spent Saturday cleaning compulsively, channeling my nervous energy into making everything perfect. This wasn't just a family dinner. This was a stage, and I had set it carefully. I invited our aunt, our 2 closest cousins, and our uncle, the same family members I had been subtly preparing over the past few weeks. I told them I wanted to have a real family gathering, the kind Mom used to organize before she passed. No one questioned it. Everyone said they would be there. Amira arrived right on time, carrying a bakery box of cupcakes and wearing another outfit I didn't recognize. Designer jeans and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my entire week's grocery budget. She hugged me at the door, told me how much she had missed me, and asked what she could do to help with dinner. I told her everything was under control, that she should just relax in the living room with everyone else. She didn't notice the laptop sitting on the coffee table, screen dark but ready. She didn't notice the way Ahmed positioned himself near the door. She didn't notice the glances the other family members were exchanging, the tension beneath the pleasant small talk. We ate dinner first. I had made Mom's recipe for chicken biryani, the one Amira always said was her favorite. We sat around the table like a normal family, passing dishes and sharing stories. Amira was relaxed, laughing, telling everyone about a difficult client she had just finished working for. I watched her lie to their faces and felt nothing but cold resolve. After dinner, once everyone had moved to the living room with tea and those cupcakes she had brought, I stood up and cleared my throat. The room went quiet. Ahmed moved to stand near the laptop. I looked at Amira and said that I had something important to share with everyone, something that had been weighing on me and that I couldn't keep quiet about anymore. Her face went pale. Just for a second, I saw panic flash across her features before she smoothed it away and asked what was wrong. I picked up the laptop and turned it toward everyone. On the screen was a photo gallery, every picture I had taken in that garage, organized and labeled. I started talking, my voice steady and clear. I told them about 3 years of sending money. I told them about the Range Rover, the designer inventory, the sales records showing thousands of dollars in monthly income. I showed them the photos of Mom's jewelry, the items Amira had claimed were stolen but had actually been sitting in her garage tagged for sale. I showed them the emergency scripts folder, the calculations of how much money she could extract from me, the systematic manipulation documented in her own handwriting. Amira tried to interrupt multiple times, her voice rising with each attempt. She said I was misunderstanding, that I had no right to go through her things, that the business was new and she had been planning to tell everyone. She said she needed the seed money from me to get started, that she was going to pay me back with interest. But I didn't let her control the narrative this time. I just kept showing photos, kept presenting evidence, kept letting the truth speak for itself. Our aunt asked Amira directly about the burglary report, about Mom's jewelry. She asked why Amira had filed a police report about a theft that never happened, why she had let us all grieve over lost family heirlooms while she was planning to sell them. Amira's story kept changing. First, she said she was holding them for safekeeping. Then she said she had been planning to give them back. Then she said I had no proof the jewelry in the photos was actually Mom's. That's when I pulled out the original inheritance documentation, photos of Mom wearing those same pieces, the detailed descriptions in her will, the appraisal paperwork from when she had them valued for insurance purposes. The room was silent except for Amira's increasingly desperate explanations. No one was buying it. I could see it in their faces, the shock, the anger, the betrayal. Our uncle finally spoke up. He said that he had been sending Amira money too for the past year, believing she was in crisis. He asked her how much she had taken from him using the same lies. Then our cousin admitted she had also been helping financially. Then our aunt. One by one, they shared their stories. One by one, Amira's web of deception unraveled in front of everyone. The pattern was the same with each of them: crying phone calls, emergency requests, emotional manipulation, and carefully crafted lies about poverty and struggle. Amira tried to leave. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and said she didn't have to listen to this, that we were all ganging up on her. Ahmed stepped in front of the door. He told her calmly that she should sit down, because we weren't finished. He said that I had already filed a police report about the jewelry and that there was an active investigation. He said that if she left now, it would only make things worse. She sat down, not because she wanted to, but because she was trapped. I told her that I had copies of everything, every photo, every document, every piece of evidence. I told her I had given copies to my lawyer and that I was prepared to pursue both civil and criminal charges unless she made immediate restitution. I laid out my terms. She would return every piece of Mom's jewelry within 48 hours. She would repay every family member she had defrauded, not over time, but immediately, from her business accounts that I knew existed. She would provide written statements acknowledging the fraud, and she would get professional help for whatever had driven her to do this. If she agreed and followed through, I would not press charges. If she refused or tried to disappear, I would pursue every legal avenue available and make sure everyone in our community knew exactly what she had done. The silence that followed was deafening. Amira sat there with tears streaming down her face. Real tears this time, not the calculated ones I had seen so many times before. These were tears of fear, of humiliation, of being cornered with no way out. Finally, she whispered that she would do it. She said she would return everything, pay everyone back, that she was sorry. But her apology rang hollow. It wasn't remorse I heard in her voice. It was defeat. Our aunt broke the silence by asking the question I think we were all wondering, why? Why do this to your own family? Why lie for years when you were actually successful? Amira looked up at all of us with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Something ugly and resentful. She said that she had always been the one who struggled, always been the unlucky one, always been in my shadow. She said that I was the successful older sister, the one with the stable job and the good husband, the one everyone respected. She said she had built her business from nothing, and that she deserved to have something that was just hers, something she didn't have to share or explain. She said the money from us was just a small percentage of what she was making anyway, so why did it matter? That's when I understood. This had never been about need. It had been about control, about having power over the sister who was supposed to be stronger than her. It had been about proving she could manipulate me while building her secret empire. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I didn't know this person at all. Maybe I never had. I told everyone that dinner was over. I asked them all to leave, including Amira. I said we would handle the details of repayment and restitution through our lawyers, and that I didn't want to see her again until she had made things right. One by one, they left. Some stopped to hug me. Some just looked at Amira with disgust. Our aunt was the last to leave, and she told me that Mom would be proud of how I had handled this. I wasn't sure about that. I just knew I had done what needed to be done. After everyone left, Ahmed and I sat in the empty living room, surrounded by dirty dishes and half-eaten cupcakes. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, he put his arm around me and said that it was over, but I knew it wasn't. Not yet. The legal process would take time. The family healing would take longer. And the betrayal, that would probably never fully go away. Still, sitting there in my own home with my husband beside me, and the truth finally exposed, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. I felt free. The aftermath of that Sunday dinner moved faster than I expected. Within 48 hours, exactly as I had demanded, a box appeared on my doorstep containing every piece of Mom's jewelry. No note, no explanation, just the items carefully wrapped and returned. The bank transfers came next. A series of payments from Amira's business account to me, to our aunt, to our cousins, to our uncle. She paid back every documented dollar she had taken from each of us. The money hit our accounts with the cold precision of someone settling a debt, not the warmth of someone seeking forgiveness. I deposited my portion and immediately put it toward the things we had been putting off for 3 years. New braces for my son, a proper family vacation, repairs on the car, but the money felt tainted somehow, like blood money, like a settlement for damages that could never truly be repaired. The police investigation concluded that while Amira had technically committed fraud by filing a false burglary report and by systematically deceiving family members for financial gain, the fact that she had returned the items and made full restitution meant that prosecution was unlikely. The detective I spoke with said that unless I wanted to push forward with pressing charges, they would close the case. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to see her face consequences, beyond just having to give back what she had stolen. But another part of me, the part that was tired, the part that wanted to move forward instead of staying trapped in anger, decided that exposing her to our entire family and making her pay back everything was punishment enough. I told the detective I wouldn't be pressing charges. He said he understood and closed the case. The family fallout was harder than the legal process. Our community is tight-knit, and word spread quickly about what had happened. People I barely knew would stop me at the grocery store or at the mosque to tell me they had heard about the situation with my sister. Some offered support. Some asked invasive questions. Some clearly just wanted gossip. Amira disappeared from social media entirely. Her Poshmark account, her Instagram, all of it went dark overnight. I heard through our aunt that she had moved away, that she couldn't handle facing people who knew what she had done. Part of me felt satisfied by that. A smaller, quieter part of me felt sad that it had come to this. We never spoke again after that Sunday. No phone calls, no texts, no attempts at reconciliation from either side. Our mother's hope of having her daughters remain close died along with the trust between us. Ahmed asked me once if I regretted how I had handled things. I told him I regretted that I had to handle it at all, but that I didn't regret exposing the truth. Some people thought I had been too harsh. Some thought I hadn't been harsh enough. But the only opinion that mattered to me was my own, and when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw someone who had protected her family and honored her mother's memory. That was enough. The hardest part about moving forward was learning to trust my own judgment again. For 3 years, I had been systematically manipulated by someone I loved, someone I should have been able to believe. That kind of betrayal plants seeds of doubt that are hard to uproot. I found myself questioning everyone's motives, looking for lies where there were none, protecting myself against threats that didn't exist. Ahmed was patient with me through that process. He never made me feel crazy for being cautious, never pushed me to get over it faster than I was ready to. He just stood beside me while I slowly rebuilt the parts of myself that Amira had broken. I also had to relearn how to help people without enabling them. The experience with Amira made me want to close myself off entirely, to never give anyone money or support again. But that wasn't who I wanted to be. My faith teaches generosity, teaches caring for those in need. I couldn't let one person's deception turn me into someone hard and suspicious. So I learned to set boundaries. I learned that it's okay to ask for documentation, to verify stories, to say no when something feels wrong. I learned that protecting yourself isn't the same as being selfish, and that wisdom sometimes means loving people from a distance. About 6 months after everything happened, I took Mom's jewelry to a jeweler and had some of the pieces reset. I created new pieces for my daughter, items she could wear and pass down someday. I kept the rest in a safe deposit box with instructions in my will that they should never be sold, only given to family members who would honor their history. Every time I look at those pieces now, I don't see Amira's betrayal. I see my mother's legacy, protected and preserved despite everything. The story spread beyond our immediate family and community. Several people reached out to tell me they had experienced similar situations. Family members who exploited their generosity, siblings who manipulated them financially, loved ones who turned out to be liars. Each story reminded me that I wasn't alone in this, that financial abuse within families is more common than people want to admit. Some of those people asked me how I found the strength to expose my sister, how I managed to gather evidence without falling apart. I told them the truth. I didn't feel strong while I was doing it. I felt terrified and angry and betrayed. But I did it anyway, because some things are more important than keeping the peace. Looking back now, I can see the person I was 3 years ago. Devoted, generous, trusting to a fault, and recognize how different I am today. I'm still devoted to my faith and my family. I'm still generous when I can be. But I'm not naive anymore. I'm not willing to sacrifice my own family's well-being for someone else's lies. That younger version of me would have seen this transformation as a loss. She would have mourned becoming more guarded, more cautious, more aware of how easily trust can be weaponized. But the woman I am now understands that wisdom isn't a loss. It's a hard-won treasure, paid for with painful lessons, but worth every tear. My daughter asked me recently why we don't see Aunt Amira anymore. She's getting old enough to notice the absence, to remember the woman who used to come to family gatherings with gifts and smiles. I didn't tell her the whole truth. She's too young for that. But I told her that sometimes people make choices that break trust, and that when that happens, we have to protect ourselves even when it hurts. She asked me if I was sad about it. I told her yes, I was sad. I was sad that my sister chose manipulation over honesty. I was sad that my children wouldn't grow up knowing their aunt the way I had hoped. I was sad that my mother's dream of her daughters being close would never come true. But I also told her that being sad about something doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. Sometimes the right choice is the one that breaks your heart. For anyone listening to this who has experienced something similar, I want you to know this. You don't owe anyone your financial security. You don't owe anyone your peace of mind. And you absolutely don't owe anyone your silence when they've abused your trust. Speaking up won't be easy. Exposing a family member who has hurt you will bring judgment from people who think keeping the peace is more important than demanding honesty. Some people will tell you to forgive and forget, to let it go, to remember that family is forever. But here's what I learned. Family should mean safety, not surrender. Love should inspire honesty, not manipulation. And forgiveness doesn't require you to keep being someone's victim. I'm writing this from a place I never thought I would reach, a place of genuine peace with what happened and with the choices I made. The anger has faded. The betrayal still stings sometimes, especially during holidays or family events when Amira's absence is noticeable. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret demanding accountability. And I don't regret choosing my own family's well-being over maintaining a comfortable lie. 3 years ago, I believed my greatest duty was to protect my sister at any cost. Today, I know my greatest duty is to protect the truth, even when it costs everything. To everyone who's been with me through this story, thank you for listening. Thank you for not judging, and thank you for understanding why this mattered enough to share. If any part of this resonated with you, I hope you'll share where you're watching from in the comments. Knowing this story reached people who needed to hear it would mean more to me than you know. And if you want to follow along with more stories like this, stories about finding strength in impossible situations, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because if my journey taught me anything, it's that we're not as alone in these experiences as we think we are. My name is Khadija. I'm a nurse, a mother, a wife, and someone who learned the hardest way possible that sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones you loved first. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I'm finally, genuinely free.